Hello and welcome to Power Hour. Today's topic is going to be the new approvals action. It's a SharePoint action in Power Automate. So we'll demonstrate SharePoint lists and libraries with the built-in modern approval functionality and this new action that works with that approval interface. Very exciting. I'm super excited about this. I cannot wait to show you all. It is brand new. And here we go. All right, I'm Laura Rogers, and this is Joelle Jobson in the window. And we've been doing Power Hour for 12 or 13 years, a really long time. I'm losing track. And we talk about topics geared towards business users in Microsoft 365. And a lot of SharePoint, a lot of approvals, automations, Power Automate, Power Apps. So we are, this is a brand new action that has just appeared in Power Automate. It's a SharePoint action. And so I don't see anything about it anywhere online. There's no blog post, there's no announcement, not that I can find. And we're, so we're going to show you what that is. And it is not the approvals action that's always been in Power Automate. It's going to be it's a SharePoint action. So it's integrated with these modern approvals in SharePoint. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. And let's see, make sure Joelle is on the screen too. Joelle, this is going to blow your mind because this is one of those things that you remember back in SharePoint 2010. Remember this old like built-in approvals thing they had? We had like an approvals action, lists and libraries, and it was all like you could be in a list or library and be interacting with approvals. And so Power Automate has always been like this very separate thing. When you build approvals, it's not necessarily visible in the list or library just out of the box as far as responses to approvals and results of approvals. Those are all things that you can build sort of manually. But now this has really taken that out of the box modern approval thing that we've talked about on a couple of Power Hours, and it's putting it together with the ability to automate that. So really exciting. So I'm going to start off by, this is on our home page. I'm just going to create a new list. And again, you can do this with lists and libraries. So I'm going to just create a travel request and just use a travel request as my example. And I'll just call it 8/27. That's today. So, because I know I've got lots of travel request lists on this site, and you all have access to this list too. So I'm going to go ahead and go in the list settings and make sure that you can all, what I like to do, just a general and a habit in SharePoint is I like to give people contribute permissions so that they can add, edit, and delete, because edit permission, that default permission level, lets everyone change the settings and delete the list and stuff like that. So you all, I'm going to take this and put it in the chat. So we have a lively chat going on, and you all can go here and add and do travel requests, during the demo if you'd like. So this is our travel request list, and what I'm going to do is I'll just add at least just one thing in here just so we can see what it looks like. Where am I going to go? I'm going to go to Atlanta to visit Joelle. She's like, yeah, please come visit. And then I'll just put myself in here. And then it has a trip title and a destination. I'll just say, I don't know, Atlanta Aquarium. Close enough, sure. I think I'll go there next week. And blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I filled out just one approval request. So now here's the setting that we've had in a previous Power Hour that we've talked about, just the out-of-the-box approvals that now exist in every list and library. You go to Configure Approvals, and you enable approvals. And so what this gives us, and again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because this is something we've already covered on other shows, but when you enable approvals, let me go ahead and narrow down. This has got too many columns. I'm going to narrow down the columns so that we can see some of the stuff that it created. Approved is a column that it creates just out of the box in this list. So I'll just leave that in there, but just remove some of these other columns. So when I turned on approvals, it actually created some extra columns like approvers, responses, approval creator. It's got approval status, and I think there's an approval comments in there. Yeah. So I went ahead and it added approval stat. It automatically adds approval status in here when you turn on that approval setting. So out of the box, you could just do, go to Joelle. You can just manually type somebody in here and send them an approval. And so again, we've already covered that. So that's not the magic. The magic is the fact that now there's an action that ties together with this new setting. So what we can do is have it automatically start an approval, or automatically, and you can even use a trigger of that item being modified to have that as a trigger for another flow to do something else, maybe once something has been completed, being approved. So let's go to Power Automate, and we'll just do a new flow. And I'm just going to say, I want to create a flow that will just trigger automatically as soon as somebody creates an approval request. A travel request. So I'll go to SharePoint, and it's going to be when an item is created. And so, and most of the time in the real world, we have approvals triggering just automatically. Usually, in my experience with approval processes, you're not going to wait or rely on people to remember to go click a button to start an approval process. Just most of them are automatic. So that's why I'm starting with automatic. So I've got my Power Hour SharePoint site. And what you'll notice here is that you're going to see a lot of lists here, and not, for some reason, not necessarily libraries. So I'll show you a hack. Let's do a library next. Y'all remind me in the chat if I forget, but we'll do a library next so I can show you how you can still, it says list name. When we get to the approval action, I'll show you kind of like what it has listed there. Okay, travel request is this is just the trigger. And then, so when an item's created, I just want to do, here it is right here. This is the, ta-da! This is the new approval action that I was talking about. Create an approval request. Yay. Okay, so there it is. Now, when you create an approval request, you pick your site, and then you pick your list or library. So what I noticed when I first was trying this is I had a library that I was trying to create use this action on, and it wasn't showing here. And I thought, well, maybe it's only showing lists here, but it says list or library. And then, so this is kind of what I was mentioning a second ago. The trick is that you have to turn on that content approval setting in the list or library first. So if you don't see it listed here, it's just because you haven't turned that setting on. So this is showing you all the lists and libraries that you had that setting turned on. And that is that turn on approvals setting. So here's that list I just created. And then, of course, the ID that we're going to be triggering off of is just the item, the ID that was just created. And then here you have approval types. So we'll do both of these. You could do default approval or multi-stage approval. So default approval is more of like parallel, and multi-stage is one after the other. So when I do default approval, then similarly to the approvals action, all this stuff appears behind me. So let me move this a little bit so it's not hidden behind my head. All right, so now we have, what do you want to call your approval request? Just say approve travel. And then I can use this dynamic content, of course, to put whatever the name of that item is, or any dynamic content. And here's where you can put approvers. So I could just type the name of somebody in here, and then and just resolve names just like a people picker, or you could have it use dynamic content and have it go let you actually pick from fields in here. So I'm not going to go to this extent, but I could say like whoever the requester is. I could do a get manager action in the flow to go get that person's manager, and then I can send the approval to that person's manager if I wanted to. I am going to keep this simple since I don't want to have to log in as other users. I'm just going to say created by just me. I'm just going to just keep it simple. I'm the one creating the travel request. It's just going to send the approval to me. So it's fine. Require response from all recipients. So what I can do is I can put multiple people in here. I can even put other people, people in other organizations in here. So she's an external user in Power Hour in this tenant, and I could send this to external users. But if I just say require response from all recipients, no, then this is that parallel approval concept where it's just going to send it to all the people listed, and then it's going to just let whoever responds first. That's going to be the answer. And then the details. Take a look. I can't spell. And just you could put metadata from that information. I could put information about that travel request. I could say like, where's the destination? Where's the city? You know, just all the information about it. So I'll just say like destination city there. Put a space there. Okay. So as you could see, you could put a lot of verbiage in here and insert a lot of fields from that item if you want them to see a bunch of information in their approval request. So, and then I could also just do things after this. The cool thing of what I like about this action is it doesn't sit and wait. The flow is not going to sit and wait and time out. Yay, right? That's awesome. So it's not going to sit there and wait and time out. It's just going to create the approval request and then it's going to be done. So whatever actions you put after it, it's just going to do those immediately. One thing about this action, I'll go ahead and save this. One thing about this action is that it's going to send a Teams notification, but it's not going to send an email. So let's go ahead and kick that off. And so, but an email is another action that you could add if you wanted to. I'll go to Hawaii, my favorite place. I don't really have a ton of fields that I need to fill out. I'll just put Hawaii Gardens. The botanical gardens in Hawaii are lovely, by the way. I've been there. All right, so now I've submitted my request and now it's going to pop up in Teams. So I'll just go to Teams over here. And so the approval action in Flows sends an email and does a Teams pop-up. This one only does a Teams pop-up, but again, you could just add a send an email action in your flow, and then it would also send them an email. All right, so let me go to let's see if the thing about flows, SharePoint triggers is that it always just takes them a couple of minutes to kick off. So this one just hasn't kicked off yet. So what it's going to do when it runs is it's going to maximize that. Now it says it's going to say requested. So this is the other one that I had manually kicked off. I had just clicked on it and then typed someone in there manually. So this one I had manually kicked off, and this is the one that's going to kick off that flow. So let me go back over here and see if it's run yet. And then you just have to wait for the flow to run. So it's not usually instantaneous. What do you all think? Isn't this exciting? Oh yeah. Let's see. Okay. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So now it's running, and now I got my activity. Laura Rogers sent your request, approved travel to Hawaii. It has a link to the item, so I can go open up that item if I want to as the approver. And then look at that. Even on the item in SharePoint, it has that button. Isn't that very cool? So it's got the button here in the item, and it's got an approval details button at the top. So even when you're not on the list, you're just on the item, you can still get to the approval details. So then now when I go to the list, now it says, so that's the one to Hawaii, the one I just created. And now it says requested. And it automatically sent it to me and Joelle, and it's just waiting for whoever the first one is to respond. So I'll just go ahead and say great, and then approve. Yeah, I love the fact that it's just right there in the list or library, and it's not like this whole separate thing. It's like they're really bringing it together. It's super exciting. Okay, so I approved it over in Teams, and I had set it up to just require one person to approve it. And then I got a notification that says final status approved. It says no response, Joelle, and approved by me. That's fine. And then, and now I can see it says approved. All right, look, now watch this though. If I try to edit this later, this is something that I love about this. Let me move this comment thing out of the way. I change it after it's been approved. Look at this. Applying changes will cancel your request. So they really bring it all together here. So it says this item's been submitted for approval and is either approved or rejected. So if you make a change, it's going to reset it. So if I apply changes, it's back to not submitted. So it's not approved anymore. Right? So that's great. Now, if I make comments, so this one up here says requested. And if I make a comment on it, this is interesting. I'll see, it lets me make comments. A comment is not changing the actual item. So it's not going to say that to me. It's just going to let me make whatever comments I want. Also, speaking of comments, let me see. So of these other columns that it adds here are going to be, so let me go ahead and just do this one. Oh, Joelle, can you approve this? Since I am not the approver, I can't click approve. That's another huge thing about this. It is locked down to, you are only going to see that approve button if you're the actual approver. Oh, thank you for somebody created one. You're only going to see the approve button if you're actually the approver. So now Calgary Stampede was just created here. And that one's automatically going to be sent for approval via the workflow. So another thing you can do is, so once this thing gets approved, so this is the other thing that you can do is you'll be able to have a trigger for a different flow to kick off when it gets approved or whatever happens with it. So this first approval that I created is only going to kick off when it gets created. It's going to run, it's going to be finished, it's not going to be waiting. And so in order to have it do something once it is approved, then you'll be creating a separate flow. Before I get to the separate flow for the responses for doing something after, I'm going to go ahead and show you this other option in here for instead of default approval, the other one. So I'm just going to completely delete this, and I'll just add it again just so you can see what it looks like again from scratch right here. Create an approval request for an item or file. I'll go to SharePoint Power Hour. Let me move this out of the way again. And then it's only going to show lists or libraries that have that setting turned on. And then that's a good way if you're curious on your SharePoint site who's using this setting. If anybody's turned on this setting for any of your lists or libraries, you could just go do that drop down and then you'd immediately know which ones have that setting turned on. So it's a nice little tip. Okay, there's my item that just got created. Approval type, I'll create multi-stage. So multi-stage is the one that's going to go one person after the other. So the default approval is just parallel only. It goes to however many people you put in there all at the same time. And then you just tell it whether or not it needs to wait for all the responses. This one, the multi-stage, goes serial. It goes one after the other. So title is going to be, I'll just say approved travel. And then just put the title in there again. And then here's all the different approvers. So something to note is that it will not let you put the same person in multiple stages here. So even if you're testing it and you just want to send it to yourself, it's not going to let. That's the first thing I tried, is I just put my own name in 3 different stages, and it did not work that way. So the first approver, I'm just going to type, actually I better use my, I just better use the one from this account. So I'll just say created by email. And then you add a new item to add another stage. And then this one's going to be Joelle. And then I've got another email. I'll just put my external to this Power Hour tenant. And then again, here's the details. Take a look at blah, 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 whatever it is. There's my reason. Here's the reason. Okay. And then after it sends the approval, if I want to also notify them about that in email, I can do that. So I could say email. The thing about this is that if you send an email, it's going to go. Okay, so here's the trick. This flow is going to kick off, and it's going to kick off the whole approval. So it's going to just start this approval process, and then it's going to go one after the other. But the thing is, the flow is going to be finished. So if I create this action and then I say send an email, it's not going to wait till the whole approval process is over to send an email. It's going to send an email like pretty much at the same time that it starts the process. So it's not going to send an email to each person when it's their turn. It's going to send the email just right when the whole thing starts. So there is not a way, at least right now, to send an email to each person when it's their turn to do the approval, but it will do a pop-up in Teams when it's each person's turn. So I'll just go ahead and do send an email. And right here. And then I'll just put it to like just all those same people. Created by, and then Laura. Let's see if it lets me. Yeah, see, it doesn't have dynamic data from that approval request here. All it has is the ID. So I can't just say like list who the approvers are dynamically. So I'm like literally just typing them in here. All right, approval sent. I'll just say approval started, and then that way they'll know maybe it's like a heads up. An approval process has started. Trying to not type so loudly there. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the serial one. Save that. Now, if anybody creates another new travel request, it will go through the serial approval process. And then we'll do the one that is a response, like after it's been approved. Okay, I'll go ahead and add another one. I'll go to Birmingham. That's where I live. I don't think this really matters. I'm not using this field anywhere. I'm not using the dates anywhere in the flow anywhere. None of that really matters. Okay. So now I have to wait a couple of minutes before that one will show up. It's interesting that did the Calgary Stampede one not trigger the workflow? That would be weird. I'm just going to look at this real quick. Yeah, no, it did. Calgary Stampede, get some yeehaw. Okay, yeah, there it is. I should remember how many were in there. Okay, so now I can see my request popped up just now. So, and it's going to go in order. So now when I look at it, so it says Calgary Stampede. Oh wait, Birmingham's the one I did. This other person Scott put himself and Joelle in here. Did you manually do that in this button right here? That's probably what he did. All right. So Birmingham, it should be triggering. There we go. It says requested now. So now it's requested. Now it's showing me all the steps. I don't know why it shows them upside down like this. Does that seem like it's backwards to you? Step 1, 2, and then 3. I guess at least they're numbered. So step 1 is it's pending a response from me. So I can go to my this pop-up that I got. And it also is going to have sent that email. Let me go look at that too. So this is the email that I sent. So remember, I sent it to all 3 people that were part of the process, letting them know an approval has started, but only the first person has actually gotten this pop-up so far. Great. Approve. And then I can go back and look at that item. Let me just like close it and open it again. Okay, so there's my name and my comment, and then it's pending a response from Joelle. So, Joelle, did you get a pop-up? Probably. Okay, cool. So Joelle's going to get her pop-up, and then my external account over here is going to get a pop-up too. And it just goes one after the other. And again, the flow, let's go look at, so I got a pop-up saying that Joelle had approved my request, and then I got Laura Rogers has sent you a request. So this is me as an external user now getting that one as the third person. Love it. Okay. So now I got final status approved. So you don't even have to create a workflow to let people know that it was approved, because it will give them a pop-up in Teams letting them know. But if you want something else to happen after it gets approved, that's when you have the ability to create a flow. So let me see, let's take a look at that. Is there any questions as we go? Are items not approved visible to all contributors? Okay, so if you wanted to have moderation and have things that are not approved not be visible, that is a different kind of approval. That is a setting in SharePoint called content approval. And content approval puts everything as pending until a moderator approves it. And content approval also has its own action in flow to do things to interact with content approval. But that's what Dan is asking about in the chat. And so this is a different type of approval than content approval, but they're both still there. So if you see the content approval action in Power Automate, the SharePoint action, that's a different thing. Okay, so, oh yeah, so Scott said he got the approval request because I had put the created by person as the first approver. So he was able to approve that himself because he had just submitted it. So, and I see Tony requested that one and submitted that one. So y'all are having fun. I'm glad y'all are having fun with this. Okay, so we'll do another new flow. Travel request. Let's see, I'll just call it travel request approved. And then my trigger is going to just be SharePoint when an item or file is modified. So when, let's see, where is it? Oh, here it is. So when I don't want this to trigger when something's new, when it's first created, because it's definitely not going to have gone through an approval process yet when it's first created. So I'm just going to say only when it's been modified, it's going to trigger this. And that is my travel requests, 827. And then thanks. I see Joelle approved my request. I'm getting approval requests left and right. Okay, so when it gets modified, so this is a good case to use a trigger condition. And you're probably familiar. I just used, I think, just a couple of power hours ago when I was doing something else. I showed you a trigger condition. So we'll do a trigger condition for this one. And my little hack to figure out the syntax, since I am not a programmer and I don't know syntax, my little hack is to use this do until to figure out the trigger condition. So I'm going to take my, I'm going to look for this approval. It's approval status is what it's called. Okay, so I've got two things I've got approval status, which is a complex column. So it's got multiple values in it. So its approval status is just kind of like when you are dealing with a people picker, a lookup column, or a choice where they have multiple values in them. If I choose approval status value, that is actually a number. It's storing these statuses all as different numbers, like requested is 1, approved is 2, like something like that. So I don't want necessarily to get the number. Because I don't know the numbers, I just want to use the label, and I want the label is just the word approved. Approval status label is equal approved. So then the way I get the syntax to put this in the trigger condition is I say edit in advanced mode, I go to code view, and then I grab this thing. And that's what I need for my trigger condition. All right, then I go to my settings of my trigger and I go to trigger conditions and add that and paste it in there. So it says when approval status equals approved. And that's my trigger condition. I don't need this do until. That was just my little shortcut to get the trigger condition. Now, when the approval status equals approved, and only when it equals approved, is this flow going to get triggered and then update that item. So, and then whenever there happens to be that functionality where if somebody edits it later and changes anything in that item, it's going to take away the approval status. It's going to put it back to not submitted. So I don't have to worry about doing a condition to see if the approval status is the thing that was just changed, because they're not going to be able to change the item and do anything else with it after it's been approved. So once approval status is approved, it's not going to be edited again after that. So I can pretty much this can be as simple as my workflow is, and I could have it send an email, go create an item in another list, go take a file and convert it to a PDF, like whatever I want to do after that thing gets approved, then I would do it all here. So I'll just go ahead and save that. And then we just need to take one of the ones that is not finished being approved yet and go ahead and finish the approval process. Actually, I'm going to go just edit the flow real quick. Keep this simple instead of having to go find, because it's in another Teams tenant. I don't want to switch my Teams tenant right now. I'm going to go in here and just edit this and just make it only 2 approvals levels. So I'll just take out this one. There, and now it's just got 2. So if you manually, anytime you edit this, it puts it in this weird little interface. Just make sure you put quotes around if you're manually typing these in here. Okay, so now it's just going to go to those 2, and I'll just go approve another one. So this one says not submitted. Now, if I manually click this is not going to kick off that flow. This is just, you could still just manually kick one off. I'm just going to do another new travel request. I'll go to Chicago. And none of that really matters. All right. Now, if you are in your flow and in your emails around this business process, if you're using any of these fields, you do need to make sure they're required fields in your list. So like you would go to column settings and go require that this column contains information. So anything that is important in your business process, in your flow that you're using, and you need to make sure people fill it out, make sure those fields are required. I'm not really using any of those. I'm really just kind of kicking this off, and I'm using the name of the travel request, so it doesn't matter. But kind of keep that in mind, that those might be important for whatever your process is. So I added Chicago, and I'll just like refresh this. And Chicago, it still says not submitted because the flow hasn't kicked off yet. And here's another little tidbit, is that you can add columns here in your flow to see like more information about the things that are triggering the flow. So instead of having to click on each thing to see which item it is that triggered it, I just added the title as a column here, and then I can just visually see. So this one says 11 seconds ago. Let's see. Oh, sometimes they'll disappear too. Just put it back. Oh, there it is, Chicago. So now that one kicked off, and so an approval request, approve. And then Joelle's going to approve it, and then when Joelle approves it, that other one is going to kick off. I've got more that I can build onto this. So what we've got here is this is a library. And we created this library last time when we were showing how you can create a button in SharePoint just using JSON to kick off, for an example, to kick off an approval process. And so what you can do though is tie this together with that approvals action that we're talking about. So I'm kind of ramping it up a little bit, showing you a little bit more complexity. So what this button does, all it does is it changes a value. So let me go, I'm going to go to my column formatting, format this column. So and this was a different Power Hour that we did this. So when I click this button, it just, all it does is changes the value of this column called approval status. And there was a manual column that I had created, like this one. It changes it to the word approval 1. And this was an example I had done that had like a way of doing multiple stage approvals with like separate flows for each stage. And so what this button does, all it does is change the status. So what you can do is tie together this concept with what we're talking about today with this approval, this built-in approval status. So let me go to a flow I already created. Go turn that one on. And this one, approvals new action. So I'll turn that on. So when an item or file is modified, let that finish rendering there in that document library. If the value is only going to trigger this flow, if when that item changes, that status gets changed to approval 1. And that is just a status column that I created just as a choice column. That's not that built-in one. So when that gets changed to, when somebody clicks the button in the list, that big green button, it's going to change the status to approval 1. Then when approval 1, then it triggers this flow. So then I'm going to get the changes for an item or file, and I'm going to say if that column approval status is the thing that just changed, I don't want to kick this off and do anything if that's not the column that just changed. I'm going to send an email, and then this is the new create an approval request. So I was trying out both of them. I was trying out the multi-stage and and just the one stage one. I'll just delete that. Delete that. Okay, so when it changes to approval 1, this kicks off the multi-stage approval. So then this is where I was telling you where I had tried adding myself 3 times in here, and the flow would literally not let me. It had an error that said you can't have the same email address as multiple approvers. So this is going to kick off that flow. Now it's going to, I had it so it sends an email that approval's been sent to you. It's like letting them know that they're getting an approval, but I kind of told you the stipulations about the fact that you get the pop-up in Teams, but you don't necessarily get an email. So it's kind of up to you to write an email. Now, the tricky thing about documents in a library, so in the list, when you click on the item and you go like, I'm going to go view that item, and you click the link, it just opens up that list item. Like it opens up like from that approval little pop-up. When you click the link to look at the thing you're approving, it opens up the item itself. And the item itself actually has, let me go click edit all. It actually has the button for the approval in there. And when I clicked it from Teams and I went to this, like the link to the item, it actually had that approval, trying to get to where it had it at the top right here. It has approval details. So I'm looking at the list item and I see the approval details button, and then I can just be on the item and see the details. The problem with the document library is that when I click the link to go to the document library, to go to the file, it's just opening the file, the document. So let me show you what that looks like. We'll go ahead and kick one of these off. So I'll just start approval for this security file. And of course, since it had already been approved and I was changing something, it automatically reset it back to not submitted. So let me see. I think that one kicked it off. So let me go double check. I'm so interested to see what y'all think about this. Let's see. What are some people saying, Joelle, while we wait for this? Oh, they're saying we tried it out. With the button option in the library, is it possible to lock the document to read only until the approval button has been pressed? Usually I don't think so, but we can double check that. So here's 35 seconds ago, it kicked off. And it created an approval. So let's go look at the documents to approve. Make sure I refresh this. That was this one. It says requested. And this is the one where I put myself in all three of those. And then let's go look at the pop-up. Laura Rogers sent your request. So when here's my request. So this is what I was talking about. Approve this file. And then they click the file to open it. But then it says this document has been marked as final. Saving changes will remove that status. So I think this answers the question you were just asking, because it has to be marked as final, like don't make any changes as it's going through this approval process. So this feature that we're using right now is not something you're going to use if you want people to be changing the document along the way. I have an approval process that I built for a customer recently that involves all the people in the process actually are supposed to be opening up the file and making changes to it throughout the process. So that is not what this is. This is going to lock the file down and make it so you don't want to edit it, because then if you edit the file, it's going to cancel the whole approval process and just reset it. So it's letting me know here. So I think that's good though. That's what you want it to do, right? It's read only. So it's technically not read only, but it's saying it's suggesting you not make any changes, right? So, all right. Now, what the problem that I was saying is that you don't have that approval button anywhere in here in the document. So that's going to be a little more tricky. If somebody doesn't just click approve here in Teams, look at the file, open up the file, close it, and then go back and click approve, then they're not going to see the approve button in the file, you know? So also if they, like with an item in the list, and when they click here, they see that button about the approval details. So if this is just kind of a hack, if you wanted to make them go to this library and see like this column here, and make sure that that's what they're looking at so that they can see the status and click the button and open the file or click the approval button and just kind of see all that. Potentially what you could do is send them, I know this is kind of a wacky hack, is send them an email with a link to this list for just that one, with just that one item, showing like a filter of just that one item so that they can see all of the columns, all the metadata. They can choose to open the file or they can choose to click this, and they would just see this whole thing all the way across. So I'm going to sort this, and I'm going to look at, well, I don't want to sort it. I want to filter it. So I'm going to say I want to filter by the ID equals 1. So I'm going to remove my filter. And then what I'm doing is I'm just trying to create to see what the URL would look like. So this is really hacky. So I'm taking it to filter field 1 equals ID, filter value 1 equals 4. So this is potentially a link that you could send them in an email to that specific item. And I'm just going to do that just for fun. So this is, I always like to add like weird stuff towards the end of Power Hour. So I'm going to say when I send them this email to let them know about this document that they have to approve, that's the link that I'm going to, instead of just a link to the document like this, I'm going to send them that link to just that row. So let's try that out. I have to go into code view. Equals, and then filter field, I want to filter value 1 equals, and then I have to put, this is going to be the dynamic ID of that item, of that file. I could put click here, or I could put like the name of the file or whatever. I'll just put click here just to make it fast. And then see what that does. Fun, right? Okay, so then it's going, let's try another one. So I'll go click the button on another one, go remove my filter here, and I'll click start approval on health and safety. No, I don't want to send that to, let me just change who these people are. Exit grid view. And I also, in that other Power Hour, showed how you can make it only show the button if it's not approved. Okay, so that is going to kick off that flow. That was the 6 minutes ago. That's the one that failed, but we're going to go and get that new one that we kicked off. And then again, I'm going to make it so that I can see the name of the file. Here's the name. And is it the one I just clicked? Let's see. Health and safety is the one I just clicked. Okay, I got Laura Rogers sent your request. So this is the pop-up. Oops, let me see. Is that a different? Oh yeah, that's the pop-up in Teams. There we go. I was like, what is that tab that it's doing? Okay, so then this is the file. So that's the link straight to the file, but the email is this right here, this link. So let me click that. Look at that. Okay, so that's what I was trying to achieve. Health and safety had an ID of 1. And so I was able to, that's the one that I clicked on. And so when I send them to this link in the email, instead of just going straight to the document, they can see just the document, but they can go click on this if they want to. And if that person is the approver right now in this stage, they could also click approve from there. And so they don't have to only click approve in Teams. They can click it from in the list. And I love the way that it's locked down to just that person. Let me switch back over here. I love the way it's locked down to just that person so that other people can't approve things for other people. That's good. And I love the fact that it locks down the item. So if somebody makes changes to something after it's approved, it will reset that back. Or if the approval process has already started, it'll reset it back and it warns you. And also if you open a document that has had that approval process started, it's letting you know across the top if you change it, you're going to reset that approval process. So this is so amazing that all these things are like tied together now. The approvals action, the modern approval little button and interface in the lists and libraries, and just the ability to have like multiple things it kind of all makes sense and it's tied together. And I think like the huge thing about this is that now for end users, I think it's going to be less confusing and it's going to make more sense as far as just all the different places you have to go click to approve or click to look at the item. Now they're more tied together, especially with the approval button actually on the item when you go view the item. So thank you, Microsoft. You all are really like, this is huge. So I love it. I hope you all love it too. Thanks everybody for watching. Let me see if there are any last questions. Let's see. Yeah, so no, the document can't be edited during the approval process. That's the thing. If you wanted to have a process where they're editing the document during the process, you would not be using this setting. You'd be doing it something completely different because that is what it's going to do. It's going to lock it down. Yeah, so I think kind of one of the only negatives is that some people, I think most people use Teams, but if you're not using Teams and it's not going to send you an email. And also just, yeah, I mean, it all seems great to me. So hopefully they're still like doing awesome things and improving this every day. So thanks again, Microsoft. Thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you next time. You can go to iwmentor.com and click on the schedule button at the top and see when all our power hours are coming up and conferences that we're speaking at, our courses at iwmentor.com, and we'll see you next time.